model today using a remote meeting application provided at no cost to our district, allowing for remote participation and for public access to the open portions of the meeting. We are also recording tonight and being broadcast and streamed by BevCam, so thank you, BevCam. Due to system upgrades, closed captioning is now available immediately on the BevCam broadcast and will be applied to the recorded version on the YouTube channel within 24 hours. On June 16, 2021, the former governor signed Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and on February 12th, and again on July 16, 2022, he extended provisions to, among other things, allow public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely until March 31st, 2023. This specifically suspends the need for a quorum and the chair to be physically present and asks our body to use technical methods to allow safe public access. We would encourage viewers to utilize the BevCam streaming options this evening if possible. As a note, Beverly has prior approval for remote participation, although that permission, a chair and a quorum will be physically present when this act and its extension expires. Joining us today are members of the school committee and various members of the district administration and leadership teams. We will conduct a full roll call attendance in a moment for the record, and since the meeting application sometimes does not display all participants. Please remember that any audiovisual you supply on this platform will become part of the meeting record. As such, please use your mute functionality to prevent background noises. I would now like to ask President Abel to conduct a roll call to ensure you're able to both see and we can see you and hear you this evening.
Sure, I'm going to start with our remote participants. We have our citizen representative, Allison Driscoll. Okay, we are going to need more volume here on the cart, and we lost our airplay, it looks like. Thank you.
Have it, so maybe her, it's way up there.
Okay.
Try that.
Okay.
Maybe. But what happened to the screen though?
Yeah, I think we lost the screen.
I have it on mine.
Okay. We'll keep trying here. Laurel Bolden. Okay, I think we're just hearing you back in the studio and not on the TV, so it must be the airplay. While we troubleshoot that, our other citizen representative joining us tonight is Lorgan Sudak. Okay, I faintly heard here. I'm glad you can hear us, and we'll hear you shortly. We have two student representatives joining us. We have Cameron Pisano. Okay, and Zanab Ba. Okay, we can hear and see you. Thank you. In the audience, we have Jaden Aravallo, and we have Julia Bissett. Okay, we are also joined by school committee members, Karen Robinson.
Here.
Dr. Jeffrey Silva.
Here.
Rachel Abel. We have our recording secretary, Liz Wilson. We have Dr. Suzanne Chirocek.
Here.
Dr. Dorothy Flaherty.
Here.
Ms. Kate Twombly, our assistant principal at the middle school.
Here.
Okay, and we are joined in the back, is that Dr. Thomas and Ms. Taylor? Okay, and another student rep, James. I didn't catch your last name before, but thank you for joining us. Anyone else at the back table? Okay, I think that covers our attendees.
Thank you. I would like to ask Dr. Flaherty to please lead us in the pledge this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I will also turn the meeting over to Dr. Flaherty now.
Thank you. Our agenda this evening, as usual, starts with our approval of our minutes for January 11th. We'll hear from our student representatives. I have some updates on dates for you, so you can put them into your calendar for the end of the year. And then we will have a presentation by the high school. It's very hard to believe that we have reached the time of the year where we're turning the page for next year. And so this is always the beginning of the transition time. So, and then we have some exciting information to share, and we'll be asking for your approval for some new science textbooks and resources at the end. So if we could start, I would ask that if somebody to make a motion to approve the minutes of January 11th, 2023.
Motion?
I'll second the motion.
And President Abel, could you call a roll for us?
Sure. And we've just had a couple more people join us, Judy Martin and Melissa at this point. We'll start a roll call vote with our citizen representatives, and hopefully we can hear you more strongly. We'll start with Allison. Where did you move to? There you are, Allison Driscoll.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we can hear you very loudly now. And Laurel Bolden.
Abstain.
Okay. And Lorgan Sudak.
Abstain.
Okay. And then our online student representatives, Cameron Pisano
Yes.
and Zanaba. This is for the minutes that we're approving.
Yes.
Perfect. Then I think I went around the table. Let's see. Kate Twombly.
Yes.
And then Karen Robinson.
Yes.
I can't remember if I called myself first or Dr. Silva. Dr. Silva?
Yes.
And Rachel Evil, yes. I think those are our voting members. Oh, our other two student representatives. I'm so sorry. Julia Bissett. Okay, and Jaden Averello. I will get it, I promise. Thank you. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with one abstention. Okay.
2 abstentions, I think. All right. Thank you. And now we'd love to hear from our students. And this month we'll start with our in-person student representatives. So Jaden, do you have any information you'd like to share with us?
This Friday, BMS will host a dance for grade 8. The theme, voted on by the students, is the Hollywood Red Carpet, and students will attend from 6 to 8 p.m. to raise funds for end-of-the-year activities, including a trip to Six Flags. Students will eat pizza, snacks, and have time to dance, hang out with friends, and maybe even sing a little karaoke. Grade 8 is looking forward to a fun night. Also, BMS recently has started a green team that will meet regularly at BMS. Their first goals are waste reduction, recycling, and creating sustainable routines. They are already working to repurpose wasted copy paper for math class as scrap paper and will launch a plan after break to take water bottles and cans out of their trash with new labeled bins in the cafeteria.
Thank you very much. Julia.
Eighth grade students recently worked on the second phase in their civic action project. The purpose of this project is for students to be active citizens in their communities and take part in something important to them. Students might fundraise, volunteer, raise awareness, or contact local officials. As the first part of the project, 8th graders explored their identity, who they are and what's important to them. Recently, we researched topics we would be interested in exploring and taking action on. Soon, we will come up with a plan of action to make steps toward a positive change in our communities.
I love the civics project. It's so good that we're making a difference in the community. Zainab?
Get a message. It's a little glitchy and slow. You can try your best.
Okay.
BMS welcomed over 1,200 members of the community for our first annual Winter Waffle Wind. Food service staffs were here early in the morning to prepare a delicious meal of waffles, sausage, and bacon. The BMS staff did themselves as the food servers, topping carts, helpers, decorators, performers, raffle ticket sellers, and table busters. not to mention the raffle baskets that were donated by staff and PTO. This was a community event that was the first kind here, and it raised over $10,000. That will be split among the 4 grade levels for fun activities.
It was an
Almost
amazing
11.
morning. I'm so glad that somebody mentioned the Waffle Land, because it really was the turnout and the camaraderie and the happiness. It was just an amazing all-over event, and we raised a lot of money for each of our grades, and I won a raffle basket. Haven't gotten it yet. I came over and it was very exciting. So Cameron.
This week, students in grades 9 to 11 are looking at courses for next year. And this week, so for the seniors during math classes, we've been getting presented to by our guidance counselors on scholarship opportunities for those of us looking for college. And in advisory, seniors are still working to figure out reach internships and fill out the paperwork and get that in. And for that, there was a networking night at Danvers Port Yacht Club to help find internship opportunities.
That's a very exciting time of the year for our seniors, so thank you, Cameron. And I do not believe that Emma joined in, but I couldn't see online. Okay. Well, thank you again for our very thorough reports from our students. It's always a highlight of our meetings each month. Now I'd like to turn the presentation over to our high school. Mrs. Taylor will start first by talking about our program of studies. That's what we meant by the change of transition to next year. Students are going to be starting to think about registering for their classes, and we wanted to share some information with you and also get your approval on some new courses and some courses that won't run.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having us. I think maybe I should just send out a reminder that we're going to have our first live parent-teacher conference night tomorrow night from 6 to 7:30 in the field house. We have all the teachers in the field house, and that way parents don't have to climb up 4 flights of stairs to find the English teacher. So we're looking forward to that. And parents can, it doesn't formally start at 6. You can drop in whatever time you want. We'll also have student volunteers that will assist with making an appointment so that everything moves along in a timely manner. So I thought I should mention that. So for our program of studies, we have a few updates in the program of studies that I want to just highlight for you. This is a new thing that we added, inserted into the program of studies. You know, we've been talking about our pathways, allied health, business and marketing, education and training, environmental science, and hospitality. And we do have our first group of about 28 sophomores that are starting this pathway, but we put it formally in the program of studies, and those are live links in there that sort of show an idea of what it is. I'm wondering if you can click on any one of them, just so people can have an idea of what it is, and I'll look to see. So, for example, here's the Allied Pathway flow sheet, and the first recommended course is My Future Career Success. That's something the state looks for, that there's an introductory course with job skills. And then for 10th grade, we have courses that we require them to take, and then electives, and then 11th grade is further elective choices and required courses, and then 12th grade is their pathway. They wrap it up with their pathway, and usually there we're trying to find some internships. We're definitely encouraging dual enrollment and advanced placement courses as well. Now, just a reminder of where we are, we worked on this for a couple of years. We introduced it to our current sophomore class last year. We have some students who are choosing some of these pathways. So we're working for the remainder of the year to beef up our 11th and 12th grade requirements. So as the students move through it, we have more options for them, hopefully more internships and definitely more challenging courses in the field. So we just put that in there so that parents and students have a better sense of what career pathways are and what that looks like. So that board in there has live links for every single one of those pathways.
And Mrs. Taylor, if I'm not in a pathway, I can still take these elective
Oh,
courses.
absolutely. Basically, what we're saying is, let's say you're a student and you're interested in a hospitality pathway. We're saying, okay, here's what we have here that we recommend you take that will give you the skills and the content you need to pursue a career in hospitality. That doesn't mean the course is closed off to anyone else. So there could be a student in culinary arts who is in the pathway and a student who's not, and they're both taking it together. But basically what we're just doing with the pathway students is sort of pointing them in the direction that we would recommend.
Thanks.
And these are back to pathways. We worked with our culinary arts program, and they've revamped the courses. So we are suggesting 3 new courses. The first 2 listed here, Culinary Foundations 1 and Culinary Foundations 2, will replace our current culinary arts. The 3 teachers in the culinary arts department took a look at what kind of skills they want to introduce and what kind of progression they want to make. It's our culinary arts is a very popular elective, but we also use it as our jumping off for pathway in careers. So they've divided into 2 culinary arts. Culinary Arts 1, which basically introduce some very basic skills to students. They talk a little bit about the food industry and about food-borne illnesses, some basic skills, and some information about nutrition. And then, and there is some cooking in there. They do learn to follow recipes. In Culinary Arts 2, they build on those skills, build up the knife skills, and they concentrate more on savory foods. So students are learning about, sauces and soups for that. And then this is a new course. One of our culinary arts teacher, Miss Joanna Sieber, is actually she went to Johnson & Wales, and she is a baker. So we're going to offer the Art of Baking course as well. Our other culinary arts courses, which are the food service, which is the restaurant class, will still be in there. And then we have electives that we rotate, either American regional foods or international foods. Those will still be there as well. But the baseline is Culinary Foundations 1, and then a student can choose to do 2 if they wish. And then the Art of Baking is another new elective that we're offering.
Do you know in the food service course, do we offer the food handlers certification course?
We just tested 45 students in that. That's another part of the career pathways. Under the Perkins grant, we were able to pay for the testing. So actually kids took it today in the library, so they'll see how their scores are.
Yeah, that's great.
And these are courses that we're going to remove from the program of studies, and I'll read them through and then I'll explain for each of them. We're not going to offer German 1, SAT Math, Algebra Essentials, Geometry Essentials, and we're going to, instead of offering an honors in a CP Anatomy and Physiology, we're going to offer an unleveled Anatomy and Physiology. So our concern with German 1 is we have very low enrollment, sometimes 4 students, because a lot of our middle school students who have studied German here at BMS move on to German 2. So we will make sure that any student that studied German in the middle school is definitely and can continue to pursue German. But what we're finding is not so many students starting German first at the high school. So we still offer our Spanish, French, and American Sign Language. SAT Math is another under-enrolled elective. And Algebra Essentials and Geometry Essentials is something we've had for a couple of years. Our purpose was to provide more remedial support for students that need it in math. And what we had done for Algebra Essentials is take a look at the middle school 7th grade MCAS scores, the students that hadn't been successful, and we would recommend that they take that course in addition to their regular Algebra 1. And then in sophomore years, we had taken a look at the score they got in math, and because we, again, don't have the 10th grade MCAS yet to make a judgment that way, and made a recommendation. But lots of people, sometimes families opt out of that because the student wants to take something else. So our enrollment in both of these were fairly low. And the more I spoke with Dr. Thomas about what we want to do for remediation and acceleration and targeting, where students need more support in math, we think it might be better to eliminate these 3 courses, which gives us 3 open slots, so we can maybe make some of the math classes a little bit smaller. In other words, instead of a teacher teaching algebra essentials, they have an algebra or a geometry course, and that gives us another option to spread our numbers around. For our honors anatomy and physiology, anatomy and physiology is an elective, and this is the only elective throughout the whole school in all departments that's leveled. And what we found is the numbers were dropping in honors anatomy and physiology. It is a course that we are recommending to our students for allied health pathway. And so what we decided is if we just open up in general, we can have more students enrolled in it. And we need to make sure that it's open for people. We can offer more sections instead of dividing it into smaller sections. So that's the recommendation we had made there. I think that's it
I think that's.
for this. Yeah.
Yep. And so we do need an approval of the program of studies so that the high school can move forward with printing and getting everything ready to do registration. But if there are questions for us, we'll take those.
Questions?
I was going to make the motion.
Oh, okay. I do have a couple of questions. So with the, so will students who are designated in a certain pathway, will they have their first, will they be like the more likely to get an elective in that pathway?
We will be targeting them and making sure they're scheduled. I think there's plenty of space for sophomore year and junior year. We're trying to get more specialized senior year with internships or certification programs or dual enrollment, and that's what we're trying to build up now for when they're seniors. But we feel pretty confident. We know who the students are, and they will have. They will be aligned with what the course is. And if you look, when you have a chance, if you take a look at those pathways, there's about 2 courses that are required, and then each year they have about 3 or 4 options. So I don't have to get into every one of those, but we will make sure they have what they need.
Okay, and my other question was about the anatomy and physiology that's going to be offered. I don't know if you know this yet, but will it be the curriculum from the honors level that they've been teaching?
Well, we
or the
always offered an
CP?
honors and a CP.
Right.
So we'll be working with the teachers to identify the units that we want. I mean, I think and Dr. Thomas will help us with that. I think we want the course to be challenging because we're assuming the kids that are interested in this course are looking in some aspect of them, perhaps a medical or biological science field. But we'll redesign the course to make sure that it's challenging and covers as many skills as possible. I'm talking off the top of my head here, so but I think generally with the honors, the pace is quicker, and they may add some additional units, so that's what we'll need to make a decision about.
Yeah, because I understand it's a very different course, like it's a lot.
Well, it shouldn't be dramatically different because they should have the same standards, but there are differences.
Thank you.
Question.
Dr. Silver?
Looking forward with the pathways, do you see there being flexibility in expanding some of the programs either within the pathways that you have or adding additional pathways, or is this pretty much set?
Oh, no, we're taking a look at adding additional pathways. We decided not to add any this year, but some of them that we're taking a look at is we have a pretty strong media program, so we were looking at, film, television production pathway. Several of our fine arts teachers, both visual and musical arts, are crafting some ideas for a pathway, so we're looking to add more additions as we move along.
Are you limited to add biotechnology because of what's being offered at Essex Tech, or?
No, because we're not a vocational program
But,
with what we're offering.
Okay,
So that's not a problem at all.
okay. All right.
So we can, it's real more about our flexibility and staffing and where we want to go next.
Great.
I think the distinguishment between Essex Tech and what we're doing is they have a minimum 900-hour requirement for shops, so their time on learning for the specific certification that they're in, whether it's construction, whether it's electrical, is a 900-hour, and that's not our purpose. Our purpose some of the pathways may end in certification, like the Safe Serve or something like that, but we don't have that same focus where we're going to have a union card at the end of it or something.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I would point out is we're in the biotech mecca. in
Oh,
Boston.
absolutely.
And, you know, with California being the other, the second most. So I would encourage some thought into, you know, biotechnology being integrated.
Well,
And I see-
we've been working, finding some programs with Gloucester Biotech Academy. We've been talking to Cell Signaling. That's the next phase, is to make sure junior and senior year has an opportunity for some real career experience and exposure to the work
But
field.
even with the pathway, even because what I'm seeing is environmental science, and that could perhaps, maybe there's a different pathway that's biotechnology, but something that's focused in biotechnology.
Okay, yeah.
Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we remove and add the courses as Ms. Taylor has described to us this evening to the Beverly High School Program of Studies
Second.
2020.
for the 2023-24 school year.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. President Abel, could you call a roll?
Sure, I'm just looking online just to make sure we don't have any other hands or questions. I don't see any. Okay. We'll start with our citizen representatives. Allison Driscoll.
Yes.
Thank you. And Laurel Bolden.
Yes.
And did we lose Lorigan Sudak? Oh, there you are. Okay. You guys keep jumping around. Thanks. And then Cameron Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you. And Zanab Ba.
Yes.
Okay. Our in-person students are off doing their homework. Looking around the table, Kate Twombly,
Yes.
Karen Robinson,
Yes.
Jeffrey Silva,
Yes.
and Rachel Abel. Yes. I think that's everybody.
And I asked Mrs. Taylor to share some information. Thank you for the
Yes,
program of
thank you,
studies.
everyone.
And then I asked, as we are curriculum instruction in student life, this I thought was a nice way of blending all four of them together.
Yeah.
And I asked Mrs. Taylor to talk about what they're doing for Course Excitement Week.
And Cameron mentioned that. That's this week. And this is something we instituted last year. You know, we had two goals in mind: to generate enthusiasm for the variety of courses and levels that we offer. There is a program of studies. I'm not sure how thoroughly perused it is by all parties. So we wanted to create a vehicle so that people could get the information that they wanted. And the other thing that we found is that, let's say there's a teacher that teaches a particular elective. I'll pick on, I know two English teachers that have taught memoir writing. And, for a course to run, we need a certain enrollment. So we always said to the teachers, tell your kids about it, encourage them. But we weren't reaching the whole school. So that's one of the reasons for this Course Excitement Week, so that everybody in the school knows about memoir writing. And then the other challenge we wanted to do is to really encourage kids to take more challenging courses, honors or AP. So what happened this week is we have a course choice board, which we'll show you in a moment. It's a real easy way to get to different departments and find out about their course selections. And we asked teachers to also talk to kids about the next sequence in their subject, from Algebra 1 to Geometry, and to also talk about the levels, what kind of skills are required if you want to move from CP to honors. We also used our advisory session to actually the students could see the course selection worksheet. They weren't making a decision, but they had it and teachers could answer questions. A lot of this I want to give credit to Julie Ferrara and the guidance department for building this. So basically what they have is something that looks like this. Now, I couldn't do it, but all those little squares, when the teachers present, are live links in what we share with kids and with parents. But if we could go back to that, If you can click on the link underneath there.
First, and then you'll, yeah. And now you can click on it.
Yeah, this is the live one. So we had departments work on this last year, and they, some of them had their students do it. So if you want to click on any old department, we can take a look. All right, so we're looking at the math department. So if I was a math teacher, I would go over this with my students in class, and you can just click. And so it gives you some basic background about how many years of math you need to have, what the sequence of courses are, and and some skills and concepts. And then it also explains what's a prerequisite and what your choices are beyond that prerequisite. And then there's a little more detail about what the major concepts are in Algebra 1. I assume we move on to geometry because it's a sequence, and then Algebra 2. And then by senior year, students are either picking College Review Math, or they are the CP Statistics, or Pre-Calculus, or Calculus. None of them which I took. And then the AP math courses. We offer AP Statistics and AP Calculus AB. And then there's some math electives. I will say one of them is SAT prep, and that'll get dropped. So Art of Mathematics is an elective that
This
we
looks
choose.
like a fun class.
It is a fun class. We always have, and the other reason why, here's a funny story about Art of Mathematics. What we realized is that some students sometimes thought Art of Mathematics was an art course and filled their art credit. So that's another good reason to be talking to kids in the classroom about what these courses are and what they mean. And I don't think we need to go through all of them, but if you want to peek at one more, just so you have a sense of what the departments did.
Should we do a humanities?
Yes, let's do a humanities.
About music.
And again, the music department is going to explain what their course selections are. So a definition and a description of choral, vocal ensemble, treble choir. And some of these are audition courses. Piano.
Can I take the piano class?
Sure, take a class. Music theory. There's no little cats at the
I don't know, I
keyboard
saw
there.
her on the bells. So I'm not so sure.
You saw I was good on the bells,
Did a
Mrs.
very good
Taylor.
job. She's just jealous. We had Lynn Plannon was teaching a class
I had enthusiasm.
to our accomplished students, and they had a Christmas thing, and Dr. Trocheck and Dr. Flowery invited, and they were on bells and drums and following instructions. String ensemble and band. Is that it? Nope, I forgot about jazz band, another audition course. And ukulele. Guitar. And history of rock is another elective we offer.
That's a popular course, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually, I'm trying to remember, we might have broke it up into two sections sometimes. Is History Rock 1 and 2, because History Rock is getting old, so it takes a while to cover it all.
You just have to ride with me in the car. We get plenty of history of rock.
That's the end.
Okay, so picture each subject teacher going over this, and therefore can answer specific questions about what the department offers and what you should think about if you're interested in this, and the level you should think of.
Does this get shared so parents?
Yes,
can
we
see
shared it
as
with
well?
parents, and it's shared with students and with teachers. And then I think there's just one more
Karen, did you have
piece.
a question?
Did I see students saying what they liked about the course in a couple of those?
Yeah,
I think that's a
it's-
great idea.
Well, some of the
That
teachers
sounds-
had the students create the slides for their class.
That's a really smart idea, because that's what really sells often.
Right.
The kids telling them it's
It's
a
all
good
about
class.
the marketing, right?
Trying.
No, that's an awesome idea.
There was an opportunity too there was an AP Excitement Day, and they had AP ambassadors. So the students that were in AP classes had special T-shirts, and
We're
they were
getting ready
walking
for that.
around,
That's coming up.
encouraging people, talking about their AP class and letting them know what it was. And it was really through the lunches. I think they were in the lunchrooms available
right.
to talk about if you had questions about AP or if you were concerned or wondering how would it work, or, so I think a lot of that has been done, which I think is, you're right, the best way to convince someone is to have a peer tell them,
Yeah.
you know, what they did.
Mrs. Abel?
I have two questions. The changes that we've just approved tonight, are those reflected or could they be reflected in the course selections, for instance, the culinary arts, the 1, the 2, the baking? Are
Well,
those
now that you've approved it, yeah, we'll put them in there. We just showed the kids what the form looks like, but.
general? Okay.
Yeah, now we'll update it.
And then in terms of CP or honors, are teachers making recommendations already based on the 2
Yeah, and
semesters?
I can speak to a little bit about that. That's the next slide.
Okay.
Yes, and we've tried to make that a lot more thorough and reaching out to students. So this advanced course recommendation. Now, we're trying to increase our enrollment in our advanced courses in honors and AP through personalized conversations. So we've asked our teachers we're asking them to speak to at least 3 students and say to them, I think you could take honors next year in English. In particular, we're trying to pay attention to our underrepresented students, students on education plans, EL students, students of color, and make sure that we've done a special outreach for that. So we did do this last year, and that link there, I have some data about the results from it, and so we're real helpful.
Before I click on that, I think Dr. Silva had a question for the
I'll
Choice board.
ask after you finish your.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last year, we asked teachers to do this, and you can just go to the next slide. So have a personal conversation. Please talk to a student about taking a more challenging course in the field. And we told people, for example, let's say we're talking about health and wellness. There are certainly electives you can take, but it doesn't break down into honors or AP. But we did say to teachers that you could talk to students about their strengths, and also sometimes if you know, you may not be teaching math or English, but you know this is a strong student with good skills, and you might still say to the student, have you thought about taking an honors course in something? So we're hoping the conversations hit kids in different areas. And the recommendation form is what the teacher would use, so we collected this data of who they spoke to. So 163 advanced classes were recommended to students. And then what we do know is 100 of those courses were taken by students. And so when we took a look at the results, we literally 44 teachers recommended students, and the average number of recommendations per teacher was 3.8. I did say to my staff the other day that we asked you all to do it, and 44 of you did, so guess what could happen if you all did it? So I'm hoping for a larger number than 44. But from that, well, after first quarter, the mean grade for quarter 1 for students that took on those courses was 89.4, and the median was 90.4. When we, here's the breakdown of grades. 56 kids got A's, 32 got B's, 11 got C's, there was 1 F. And I think the star was there because I think the student had since transferred to another school or had left school. 17 advanced classes were taken by students of color, people who were recommended and decided to take the course. Here's their mean grade and their median grade for first quarter. And then here's the breakdown of grades, students of color in the courses for first quarter. And we had 6 advanced classes were taken by students on IEPs. Their average grade was 93.8. And 8 advanced classes were taken by FLEP students, formerly English language learners, and their average grade was 88.4. So I think that's the last slide on that. So I think we've had good results. I think, and that we showed this to the staff to say, looks like it's giving us good results. So let's continue to do this. So they'll be starting that after they've done this. So the next few weeks, and that's when what Dr. Chirocek referred to. We have our AP ambassadors. We ask students who are taking AP courses to be in the lunchroom for about a week or so, and to chat with students about how hard the course was, what I liked about the course, what do you need to be ready for the course. That seemed to work out pretty well too. Kids had more questions for their peers sometimes than for the teacher. Or you don't get to meet the AP teacher because you haven't taken the course yet, so you have the student you can talk to.
Is there any plan to target the kids that may have taken their first AP course last year and worried about whether they could do it or not? And obviously, they were very successful.
Some plans to target
To
them?
talk to other students, to like,
Oh, yes,
build-
yeah,
yeah.
we have some kids in mind,
Okay.
yeah.
So those percentages, those were just the kids who were targeted? No, it wasn't the
Those are just the
overall.
kids who were targeted that did take an
Okay.
advanced course.
Okay, thank
So
you.
if they chose not to, we weren't tracking
No,
their
I just didn't know
grades.
if, I was just
Yeah.
clarifying that it wasn't all the students in that course. got
That's
their
right, it's
89
not
or
all the
whatever.
students in
Okay,
that course.
thank you.
Dr. Silva?
I have a couple questions, one of which is the grades, but I'm going to step back and the tool that you had for the website and the different
Those little
sections. with the
Choice
diff-
board?
Do you have the means to be able to track traffic on the website to measure that?
I'm not sure. I guess it depends on the app. I think we were really using Google Doc, and I'm not sure that has that. But I'd have to ask.
Just curious to know if, that could be a mechanism to, measure the flow of requests or even outside the school with Google Analytics. I don't know if you have access to
So
this.
we are Google Enterprise, so we do have the Google Analytics.
You can
Steve Palomo's the
use
only
that
one
as a
that knows
way
how
to
do that,
measure
but-
All right,
activity.
well, I'll ask
We do
him
have
about it
availability.
then.
What he can measure is how many visits to the site and
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. How often were people accessing? Did they access just one piece or did they go?
Yeah, it's a way
There's
to.
information that you can collect that way, yeah.
I'm surprised by the grades. It seems kind of skewed to me.
Skewed in what way?
I would think that a normal class distribution wouldn't lean towards an A, and you're taking a subset
Yeah.
of the students and showing that a lot of them are getting A's. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on why it seems, why that is.
I off the top of my head, my first inclination would be that these are students that, one, we thought were capable and needed the nudge. So I think that they probably had some skills to begin with. Other than that, I really couldn't speculate. I'd have to dig a little deeper.
Okay. All right.
And also, I think if we were looking at honors courses, you might see a broader distribution, but when you're looking at AP, these are kids who are students, and they tend to get higher grades.
I think it's great, but I also think just from a statistical point of view, it just seems skewed.
Yep. All right. And I know we started late, so I'm going to move us on to our last
Thank you very
section.
much.
Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. So we can get to our last information. This is exciting. As you know, we've been working hard to update our curriculum in a regular cycle, and this year the focus was on science. The high school was most ready to be able to review this work and to move forward, so the recommendation we have for you tonight is all science courses. And we have very much targeted the use of some of our ESSER funds through the support of Dr. Trocheck to update our curriculum and textbooks that you'll see in a moment are one of the books that we're replacing, and it is the one with the smallest window is 16 years old. Dr. Thomas?
So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the process first. So the first thing we did at the beginning of the school year was inventory and evaluate our current resources. And like she just mentioned, you'll see how old some of these are in the next slide, and you'll probably be shocked. And then we dug into investigating new resources. So we had materials sent to us from different publishers. We looked at both the digital and print of those. We had publishers come out and talk to our teachers and showcase their resources. And we piloted some material when it was available to us. When we were really digging into these resources, we focused on the alignment to the standards, the flexibility of the delivery for the teacher's use, the rigor of the content that's in them, the quality of assessments, and then most importantly, the resources that are available to the students. So how they can access the material on their own at home or during the school day. And we also took a look or are thinking about how to incorporate more inclusive teaching strategies when we're using these resources. So if you go to the next slide, this is just a list of our current resources, and I need glasses, so I'm gonna,
I've got it here. Biology, print only was 2006. Chemistry is available only in print, 2002. Forensic, print only, 2006. Anatomy and Physiology, print only, 1989. AP Chemistry, print only, 2007. And we have a new AP Environmental Science course that didn't have resources. And when we're doing an AP course, one of our requirements is that our textbooks and resources are not older than 10 years old.
Great, thank you. So what I'm proposing is that we update some of our resources. First off being biology, which is all of our grade 9 students take and is tested in the MCAS. So we're suggesting that we purchase Miller and Levine, which is from Savas, formerly known as Pearson. And it's a phenomenon-driven print and digital curriculum to aid students in acquiring concepts through inquiry. It aligns with both the MAS framework and the NGSS standards. For chemistry, we are proposing we purchase the book from TRO, which is also a Pearson Savas product. It presents chemistry visually with active learning tools to become expert problem solvers and critical thinkers. And for both of these books there, they have great student resource centers. These include study areas, key concept videos, interactive worked examples, solution manuals, all at the hands of the students. And then for physics, we are going to pilot this actually starting right after February break, but there's a program called Gizmos from Explore Learning, which I have used in other districts, and it's a virtual inquiry-based simulation. So if you think about, there are some physics experiments that you can do that are hands-on, like force, a lot of Newton's laws. But when we get into concepts like waves, which happens in the spring, some of those concepts are not as easily done in the lab. Another physics standard that is to be covered by the frameworks is nuclear. So that's something we don't want to do in the lab as well. So this program provides us with some simulations for that. And then for our electives and AP courses, we would like to purchase an AP Environmental Science text, an AP Chemistry, our Forensics, which is an elective that we offer in the Science Department, which is very popular. And there are things that have changed in forensics since the purchase of our book. I think that one was 2006. And then also to update our anatomy and physiology text.
And can you share how the teachers were involved in the process?
Yeah, so they've been involved throughout the process. They did hear from the publishers. They were given the text. We spent department and curriculum time diving through the text, picking a common standard that they teach and looking across at the text that we investigated to make sure that it was standards aligned. And again, ease of delivery and the resources for the students were at the forefront of this.
And so this will bring our science department up into the modern current time with some wonderful resources. We're using a hybrid approach, so there will be physical textbooks in every classroom with, in many of the cases, also a digital component so that it's easily transferable to home. And some of them come with PD. for the
Yes, right.
teachers.
There is PD included in the total cost.
And so the total cost to bring all of our science materials up to date is $102,518.41. And again, this is funding that will be taking from ESSER. And it is substantially lower than what it would be if we were replacing textbooks for every student. But as I has foreshadowed for the committee so that you have it in your mind as we move forward, is as we move to digital resources, when you have a print text, it's something you can hold on to for 15 or 16 years. When you're using a digital license, we are purchasing a 6-year license cycle, but that will be something that will go on forever. Like, you'll have to keep paying the digital resource piece, but it is substantially less money than if we were purchasing a textbook.
For the 6 years, like for the example that you gave for that 6 years?
Yes,
And then
this-
you make a decision for the next
Correct.
book or
Yeah,
digital?
and that would match up with our review cycle.
Sorry, I didn't ask you.
Dr. Silva?
You said that there were going to be enough books or some books to have a physical copy at home for some students or a fraction of the class?
Yes, we have a full set for every classroom so that students will use it in class, but we also ordered 15 extras per subject area for students that for some modification or for some reason, an illness or for accommodations to help support them, they need that physical text. We did purchase additional so that that can happen.
That's great.
And the digital piece as well always has a digital e-text. And the companies have really come a long way. Most of the time, the kids can access these on their phones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's great.
Other questions for Dr. Thomas?
Can you just clarify, it's 102,000 for 6 years or each of 6 years?
It's total.
It's total.
Total for
Yeah.
all 6 years, okay.
Yep,
Thanks.
for all 6 years.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
We're
Super
very
excited.
excited. This was we had a principals meeting earlier this week, and we talked about, everybody, we start with our theme, joy, so we talk about what your joy is for the week. And this is certainly mine. This has been a major accomplishment to bring these resources up to date for our high school students and
I
teachers.
do have another question, sorry. I wonder, in the selection, when you're, thinking about what text to use, is there any interaction with college-level classes where you can see or ask them if the content that's in this book is sort of early content to, as a student goes into college? Do you get any of that type of feedback?
I would say
wonder-
definitely the representatives that come from the companies, tell us basically, what is more high school focused, what are the high schools in the area are using. I do have a son who's a freshman in college majoring in science, so.
Yeah.
And AP courses are with the college,
Yes,
college
and the
board
yeah,
influence.
right, yep. And the College Board has recommendations for the
Okay, that's great.
as well, yeah.
And so our final act is that we need an approval, a motion to accept the recommended and updated science textbooks being recommended tonight. by
I'll make a motion to accept.
And I'll second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Mrs. Abel, could you call a roll?
Sure, we'll start with our citizen representatives. I just want to double check that there weren't any hands or questions. I didn't see any before. Okay. Allison Driscoll,
Yes.
Laurel Bolden,
Yes.
Lorigan Sudak,
Yes.
and our student representatives, Cameron Pisano
Yes.
and Zainab Ba.
Yes.
Thank you. Then looking around the room, Kate Twombly,
Yes.
Karen Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Jeffrey Silva,
Yes.
and Rachel Abel, yes.
And this is one big step, and our second step will come a little bit later this spring when we will follow up. As you know, we did in elementary ELA resources last year, and we'll be coming forward with a recommendation for the middle school and the high school as well. So that will be coming, I believe it's April.
Cool.
Thank you very much. That's our agenda.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the CISL.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mrs. Abel, could you call a roll?
Sure, same order, a little faster. Allison Driscoll,
Yes.
Laurel Bolden, sorry.
Yes.
Lorigan
Yes.
Sudak,
Yes.
Cameron Pisano,
Yes.
Zainab Ba,
Yes.
Kate Twombly,
Yes.
Karen Robinson.
Yes.
Jeffrey Silva,
Yes.
Rachel Abel, 9-0. We're adjourned at 7:31.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. need a gavel.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure, gavel.
We're good.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome. We are at Beverly Middle School this evening with a few remote participants as well. This is the regular Beverly School Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, February 8th, 2023. We are meeting in a hybrid model today using a remote meeting application, allowing for remote participation to the public and open portions of our meeting. We are also being broadcast on BevCam and being streamed by BevCam. So thank you so much for providing that excellent service. With system upgrades, closed captioning is now available immediately on the BevCam broadcast channel, and it will be applied to the recorded version on YouTube within 24 hours. On June 16, 2021, the former governor signed Chapter 20 of the Acts of 21, and then again on February 12th, and again on July 16th, 2022, he extended provisions to, among other things, allow public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely until March 31st, 2023, which is next month. This specifically suspends the need for a quorum and the chair to physically be present and asks our body to use technical methods to allow for safe public access. We would encourage viewers to utilize the BevCam streaming options this evening if possible. And as a side note, Beverly does have prior approval from the Attorney General for remote participation, although through that permission, the chair and a quorum does need to be physically present when this act expires. Tonight is a regular meeting, which means we have an agenda item for addressing the body. There is a sign-up sheet on the blue folder right up there. We'll be checking that in a little bit. It is an opportunity to address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on a topic related to or unrelated to any of our agenda items this evening. You may send advance requests to residentvoice@beverlyschools.org to join remotely or to submit a brief remark that will be read by the chair at the meeting. Joining us tonight are members of the school committee and various members of the district administration and leadership teams. I will be conducting a full roll call for attendance in a moment, and that's because sometimes the meeting application doesn't show exactly who is online, so we'll just make sure everyone can see and hear us. I do want to remind the remote participants that any audio or video that you supply on this platform will become part of the meeting record. So we appreciate your use of the mute functionality to prevent background noises. And now let me conduct that roll call. Mayor Michael Cahill.
Here.
Ms. Kimberly Coelho.
Here.
Dr. Kenan McKenzie. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Here.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. Ms. Karen Robinson.
Here.
Great. Dr. Jeffrey Silva.
Here.
Ms. Lorinda Visnick.
Here.
And I am Rachel Abel. We are also joined by our student representative, Kaylee Quintino.
Here.
Our recording secretary, Ms. Donna Bergeron.
Here.
I don't know where I put you on the list, but I'm sure you'll record yourself. Dr. Suzanne Juracek, our
Here.
superintendent. Great. Our director of pupil personnel services, Bethany Splansky.
Here.
Our director of finance, Jean Sherburne.
Here.
Director of HR and resources and all of that, Aaron Brown.
Here.
And our director of opportunity, access and equity, Dr. Andre Morgan.
Here.
Our middle school principal, Lisa Oliver.
Here.
Okay, and then we have some members of the public who we're excited to meet. Okay, so now that we've conducted the roll call, our meeting is called to order, and our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm not sure who I haven't called on recently. Could I actually ask Anna Dabrowski maybe to lead us in the pledge? It's right here. Is that all right? You didn't know I was going to put you on the spot that quickly. With that, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Chorocek to do our student introduction because we are pleased to recognize our student.
Thank you very much, and I'm going to actually ask Mrs. Oliver to come join me. We're here to, are you going to raise it up for me? Oh, that was awesome. Nice job. All right, thank you. So we're here this evening. We want to introduce and recognize Anna Dubkowski. She is going to be representing Beverly as our Project 351 ambassador for 2023. And I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Oliver so she can tell us a little bit about Anna and how we got there.
All right.
Welcome, Anna. So we're so pleased to have Anna as our Project 351 ambassador. She exemplifies commitment to our school community and to service in general. And she has a very quiet leadership about her, and she's always thinking about different ways to make our school better. She is an environmentalist at heart, and she is very interested in keeping our ocean clean, and she is advocating for students to learn about that and to make better choices. Thank you, Anna.
So thank you and congratulations. And we're excited to have you serve for us as a Project 351 ambassador. And we look forward to, are you going to be working on a project or?
Yeah, in the spring, there's a spring service, which is a clothing drive, and all the proceeds of all the donations from that go to Prayers to Crowns,
Awesome.
Organization that is working to end clothing insecurity for children specifically.
Awesome. That's great. Congratulations. We're looking forward to what you can do for us.
Okay. Would the committee like to take a 2-minute recess? Just offer our congratulations. We'll take a 2-minute recess. We'll be right back with you. Okay, thank you for indulging us that brief recess. It's always nice to meet our students and wish them well in their endeavors. Keeping in that vein, I'd like to next ask our student representative to the school committee, Kaylee Quintino, I'm stumbling on everyone's name today, to give us a report from the student body.
Okay, so recently, the upcoming month of February, there isn't too much going on. As most of you guys know, there are February break between 20th and the 24th. But we recently, today in advisory, went over course selections. So students are now deciding which courses they are planning to take and to fulfill all their credits, especially juniors who are becoming seniors next year, and especially other sophomores and freshmen who have a greater variety of AP classes that they are being opened up with and have the opportunity to take. So that'll be going on the upcoming months, and I know that the guidance committee at the high school is working hard to make sure that everyone understands what courses they're taking, and such as the AP fair that will be held up in upcoming months. And then we have the parent-teacher night tomorrow, which is at 6 to 7:30 p.m., where parents can go to the high school and talk to parents just to see where their child is at and how the starting of the quarter is ending up, especially since quarter 3 just started. And I guess those are not many issues besides what we already covered over today in the past meeting, but that's just basically it in the tiny month of February. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and your commitment to keeping us informed, and we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting in March 8th. It's funny how when we have 28 days, it lines up on the 8th again.
Exactly.
You're welcome to go do your studies. I know you have a lot of coursework on your plate, so thank you so much, Kaylee. Next on our agenda, I would like to ask for a motion from the body to approve the records from our school committee meeting on the 11th of January.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick.
So seconded.
Oh, I think the internet. Okay, Dr. McKenzie. Were there any edits or corrections that anyone wanted to put forward?
I think I have one.
Okay.
I'm not sure it matters so much, but there was a conversation about ESSER funds paying for the outdoor learning center at Hannah. And is that really spelled ESSR or ES? It really has that other E in there, really? I have been spelling it wrong the whole time. Okay, never mind.
Okay. Are there any other corrections that we want to make? Hearing none, I'm going to do our roll call since we have remote participation. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. McKenzie?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Visnick?
Yes.
And Ms. Abel, yes. Those pass. Next on our agenda is the open forum for resident voice or input on agenda-related items. We have a blue sign-up sheet there. We also have email. I did receive one email in advance that, due to a conflict, they would like the chair to read into the record. And I'm not sure if we had any other sign-ups. Yes, okay.
There's no one signed up. We can sign.
Oh, they can sign up right now. Yep, yep, just a moment. Why don't I start with the one I received in advance? This is actually coming from, I'll start with the one that we received in advance. This is coming from 3 members of our Beverly Middle School PTO board. This is Katie Kraft, Melissa Devereaux, and Kathy Faulkner. They wanted to share with the committee, Dear school committee members, I'm writing on behalf of some of our PTO board members this evening. We were hoping to attend tonight to share these comments, but were not able to. Thank you for sharing the letter. We have all served on PTO boards in Beverly Public Schools for a number of years. At the elementary level, we have always had active parent involvement and well-attended events that build strong communities within our small neighborhood schools. It is hard to have that same community feeling at a school as big as Beverly Middle School. It has been wonderful to see the attempts over the past 2 years to change that, especially this year. We have been so impressed with our BMS staff in the ways that they have gone above and beyond to pull many community events together this year. It started with Mr. Melanson, Mr. Sutera, and Ms. Twombly sharing ideas that at first seemed impossible. But their excitement and absolute certainty we could pull it off has been contagious. From the Boo Bash with over 600 students to the waffle breakfast serving over 1,200 people, our BMS staff has been dedicated to planning and volunteering hours outside of their school day. Regardless of the grade level, the event was targeting. Staff across all grade levels have offered their support. It has also spread to our families and students. We have had students helping to plan and make decorations, and 7th and 8th graders volunteering during these events. Our families have also volunteered and donated to help make these events a success. Behind the scenes, none of this would have been possible without Lisa Oliver and the district's support. The size and age range of our middle school makes all of this complicated, but our BMS staff have figured out a way to bring everyone together to make it happen. While the PTO has helped, the staff are the ones who have truly pulled these events together. We are excited for the 8th grade dance later this week, and with Mrs. Ames and Mrs. McAfee leading the way, and all of the other events planned for the spring. We want to make sure you are all aware of how amazing they all are, and they have a positive impact what a positive impact they have had on our BMS community. Sincerely, Katie Kraft, Melissa Devereaux, and Kathy Faulkner. Thank you. Okay, and I can grab this. Okay. And now we'll recognize at the podium Christine McGuire, 34 Johnson Road, about school enrollment. And have a seat and push the button just once, it will turn green.
Hi. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have a fear of public speaking, so please bear with me. I wrote this. My daughter Cadence is in 8th grade. I got a call the day before Cadence's interview with Essex Tech. It was reported that she didn't live in Beverly, and I wasn't given the opportunity to speak with Cadence's guidance counselor, the principal, or the superintendent. I only got to talk with one person and received a devastating letter saying that Cadence had to vacate the building in 2 weeks and return her iPad. My daughter Cadence has been a part of the Beverly community, since the 1st grade. Cadence is a good kid. She doesn't get into trouble, and she has good grades. She is in the school choir, the Beverly softball team, taking local music lessons, and a member of the Beverly YMCA. Her life is here in Beverly. Oh, thank you. All I want for my child, like you, is to have the very best learning environment, and pulling her out of school with 4 months left remaining of her 8th grade year is going to and emotionally be devastating to her. I wouldn't be standing in front of you today if it wasn't for the unfortunate events of losing housing, going through a separation, going through 2 custody battles, and pouring all my resources into those custody battles, in return winning full custody of all my children. Please know I'm a good mother, and I'm doing the best I can. I humbly ask you to reconsider and allow Cadence to finish the school year. Cadence has been looking forward to the 8th grade field trip to Six Flags and the chorus field trip to Canopy. The highlight of the year is the 8th grade graduation ceremony with all of her friends. It is incredibly heartbreaking to think of Cadence transferring to a new school with 4 months left to go. She will be reaching all of
these milestones with none of her friends. I humbly ask you, for the sake of my child's mental health, that you please reconsider. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for sharing your personal story. Okay. And I'm not seeing anyone else online that wants to do public speaking, so we'll move to the next item, which is items by consensus. We have 3 warrant items listed on our agenda as A, B, and C. I'm looking for a motion to approve the group of warrants.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson and Ms. Visnick. We generally don't have any questions, so I'll go ahead and call the roll.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
In the future, can we put the categories next to the warrants just to, as a record of where the money is being spent? I think it would be useful to have that on record. It was brought up in the past, and I just don't think it had been done.
So, I guess are you looking for it to be like appropriated?
Some type of general category where the funds are being spent.
Okay.
Because as a public, someone looking at this from the public, they don't really understand where that money is being spent. And
Okay.
I think it just would be good to have some record of how the money is being spent when these warrants are brought up.
So very easily for me, and actually how I actually separate it, is I can say this is coming out of the appropriated funds, this is coming out of federal and state grants, and this is coming out of revolving. That's about the breakdown we can. There'd be not enough room for me to put if it was coming out of B&G or AY
I
or
wonder
those.
if now that we have electronic warrants that are signed by a majority, if we could include the 3 members who aren't seeing the warrants on just a distribution of the PDF so that
Well,
Dr.
it's
Silva.
not really a matter of me not seeing it. I just, as a public record, I think it would just be good to have it in this agenda, how the money is being spent. That's all.
Say, Bill.
Ms. Visnick.
What if, and I'm looking at you and I'm looking at you, maybe you each get one of my eyeballs. What if when we sign, there's that summary sheet that I tell you all the time, I love the summary sheet in the warrants. What, would we be able to include that summary sheet in the packet out of the warrant list, right? Not all of the warrants, because that's really kind of huge.
Yeah, I mean,
But maybe per warrant we sign, and there's usually a summary sheet, right?
for each one, and you're signing 6 or 7 of them.
Right, but if we had those, if it was part of the packet and somebody wanted to look it over, just like in F&F, we look over the B&G report, it's part of our packet, it's available for people to look at. Short of being one of the people who rotates through and signs the warrants, I'm just wondering what out of the warrants we could possibly put in this packet to help everybody else who didn't sign but has to vote to approve.
Right, I think Dr. Silver is saying, though, is that the general public may want to know.
Yes.
And I think you're talking, sometimes those are several pages long on each warrant, and now you're going to be like, okay, we got to get this, we got to get that. I feel that breaking it out, that this is coming out of the appropriation, this is coming out of grants, and this is coming out of revolving, could be enough. And then if somebody in the general public has a question about a particular warrant, I mean, as you know, I mean, there's an awful lot. I mean, sometimes that summary can be 4 or 5 pages, and now that's times how many warrants. So when this is one warrant that the city has produced, but it's going to be, you've signed 6, something for food service, something for transportation, something for, and I just feel that would be an awful lot to make sure that we include everything versus when I give Donna the totals, I've already broken them down because I have to run them in Munis several different ways.
Right, I guess, I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm just trying to, I think that I understand the perspective of in our role as school committee members, even if we're not the ones assigned to sign the warrants, we have a duty to be fiscally responsible. And from a transparency point of view, if someone were looking at our meeting minutes and they go, holy moly, what did you spend $447 on this month? Even if it wasn't in this packet, if there was somewhere that somebody could go, and I don't know, maybe it's on the city website because the city has to sign off as well, right? So the mayor signs off that we really have money in the city budget to pay this bill, right? It is, from a transparency point of view, it seems like we should be able to have something somewhere. I don't know how.
I want to
don't know
remind you,
how.
we have a city auditor, and ultimately, the exercise that we have chosen to do as the school committee, to have a majority of us sign the warrants and look at the receipts each week, is above and beyond what our legal responsibility is. So I think if someone were to want to know what was in warrant 23026, they would really go to the city auditor and pull what we've submitted for payment. At that point,
Or come to me
Or
in
come
the
to-
business office.
come
I'm going to
because
not
you were
push
giving
people
it to
to
the
the city.
auditor.
If I could, Madam President,
Stop by the mayor's office.
I think there are a couple of conversations here, right? One is the budget that we collectively build is now being spent during the course of the year. And Dr. Silva's saying that, there may be, I shouldn't say maybe, I'm certain there's interest in the public in looking and see how it's being spent. And there's another piece to this, right? And that's that every department head has built their piece of the budget, right? And is being responsible for how it's spent. And then who they report to is looking at it. And then who's elected, we're looking at it. And then, as you said, there's a city department, an auditing department that looks at it all. So we have a number of checks to make sure that things are being spent, ethically, appropriately, legally. And then at the end of the fiscal year, we have an outside auditing firm that comes and audits everything that we've all done in terms of how we've spent the public dollar during the course of the year. So I thought it was worth saying aloud, because there are a number of checks and balances, and they go from the department on up, department by department, all the way across the city and outside. Thanks.
Ms. Visnick, then Ms. Robinson.
So what I want to say is that the F&F packets are made available. They're publicly available, and one of the items in F&F is the expenditure report. And every single expenditure is in there underneath its associated account number. So like Ayers things are tagged Ayers maintenance versus Hannah maintenance versus, so that doesn't exactly, there's not a one-to-one mapping to these warrants, but every penny that we're spending is listed in that expenditure report, and that is already publicly available. So maybe that's quote-unquote good enough.
All right.
I did make the recommendation at one time about the 3 people that are signing the warrants, have the other school committee members get that DocuSign as a viewer. So if that would help people, I mean, I was told that by a few that I don't need that, so we never went forward with that. But that is one, right now, it's 3 people have to sign it, and the mayor signs all of them, so that makes the majority. So we can do that if the committee members would like them, but hearing that it's more the general public wants to see it, so it would be our year-to-date expenditure report and then asking deeper what is spent in there.
Okay. The public can see what's in there. They'll just there's some effort involved, and it's just with this, I just thought that in this summary where the warrant amount is stated, that there might be some shorthand way to, and if what you're telling me is it's difficult, then that's fine. There's at least the warrant that they can go.
Right,
and
yeah, I
look
mean,
up
it's difficult
details.
to know exactly, I mean, I will say that I have no problem with saying, okay, warrant number 26 for $430,000, so much was appropriated, so much was grant, and so much was revolving. to me, that might be interesting information to somebody. But going deeper than that, you'd be talking about running a report. Some of the reports, as you're signing them, you know they're 20 pages long, and all it's telling you is the name of the vendor, WB Mason. And just for everybody, I get a call every week from school committee members asking me, what is this? Because if they didn't come in and physically see them. So the school committee is doing their due diligence, asking me. But I mean, it's been, you know, and I'll get emails from somebody just asking, and that's important. It's, to me, that's important. You're asking. You see something that is, you know, a name that you don't normally see, I want you to ask that. You know, so I do think that people are doing that, but I think the general person and the public is probably not going to really care if I spent $50 on a particular item.
Okay, I saw Ms. Bisnick's hand, then Mayor Cahill.
Apologies for not knowing our policy well enough to know the answer to this, but can we, this doesn't help the public per se, but maybe it would help Dr. Silva if he got a turn to sign. And so how soon can we rotate who is designated signers? Because maybe from a understanding what Jean's trying to say, that would be helpful. And then based on he has this desire to make it available to the public, if he understood the process more, maybe he could come up with another idea besides the idea that I already brought forward.
So the chair can appoint those people. I appointed the secretary and vice president just out of, I don't know, familiarity with the process, but we can reappoint if one of you.
We sub?
Yeah.
I don't care, whatever. It's just an idea.
I would like to say that it can't be rotating that you one do it this week, one.
Yeah.
You can't be rotating that somebody does it this week and somebody else does it next week and then somebody else. So they said it's either one person or three of you, and I would say a fiscal year. Or as you say, a time you're going to appoint. You're not going to appoint somebody for a month and then a month, but.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Mayor Cahill had his hand. Good, okay.
I was just going to say, if Dr. Silva would like to take it on, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I think that would be something
Okay.
that I'd be
We'll talk
happy to.
after.
Okay.
May just be send the copy of the PDF too. But we'll figure that out. We'll figure out who's appointed.
Ms. Abel, the only thing I would ask is, do you want it the same format you have today, or do you want it changed with the additional items that I said are easily to do?
Take that offline as well. We have a motion on the table to approve warrant items A, B, and C. The motion was made by Ms. Robinson, seconded by Ms. Bisnick. We'll do a roll call. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick?
Yes.
And Ms. Abel, yes. Okay, we'll follow up on that.
That's fine.
For the school committee chair updates, I just wanted to remind folks that with this winter vacation week, our F&F meeting is actually next week. So this same location, that's at 6:30 p.m. And a number of our leaders will be out of the district on that Wednesday, and I haven't had any requests for agenda items, and I know the policy subcommittee is working offline for the next couple weeks, so I'm going to propose we cancel next week's committee of the whole meeting to allow F&F to have the time that they need, so you're not rushed.
Do you need a motion? Do we have to vote on that?
We don't. Thank you.
Queen, you
but-
get to update the schedule.
For our March 8th meeting, I have reached out to Senator Lovely and Representative Paracella's office. I'm still waiting to confirm their availability to join us either remotely or in person on March 8th for a regular school committee meeting. And out of respect for their time, I will put them at the 7:30 start, if they're available. I will send out a request for any questions that we have for them once they have confirmed if they can participate with us. And then I also wanted to remind folks that March 22nd, which would have been our committee of the whole for March, is our joint council meeting with the city council. And Dr. Churchak and City Council President Flowers and I will start to put together our agenda for that meeting. I think that's it for dates, our upcoming meetings. Dr. Churchak.
I have a couple of items this evening. The first one, and to follow the program of studies and all things next year, we're going to talk about our district calendar coming up. You all have received in your packet a copy of the calendar, and I'm glad because it's very small on this screen, hard to read. Just so that you know the process of doing the calendar, we look at the calendar year. We know that we need to build in 184 days for our teachers, 183 days for our paras, and 180 days for our students. There are some obligations that we have this year. For example, in our contract, 2 of our teacher PD days happen before the Labor Day weekend. Those will be scheduled for Monday, August 28th and Tuesday, August 29th. We'll have grades 1 through 9 starting on August 30th with a virtual day for grades 10 through 12. And we'll have all students grades 1 through 12 reporting on Thursday. We then have that 4-day Labor Day weekend. Returning to school on Tuesday, September 5th. Classes grades 1 through 12 resume, and then on Wednesday, September 6th, we welcome in our kindergarten and preschool students. We have a number of the early release days built in. I think it's 5 or 6 throughout the year that we had discussed last year. I will say those have been great opportunities for our teachers and staff to work on PD. A lot of the work that has culminated in either the material selection or some implementation of new curriculum has been done on those days. We have a primary day on Tuesday, September 26th, so there is no school on that day. Our school buildings are used for voting. And then we have 2 more full professional development days. One, the election day, which this year is November 7th. And then we also have our Friday, December 8th is a PD day. It's actually elementary and middle school conference day, and the high school holds teacher PD on that day. I work with the union, so we've already had opportunities for Julia to take a look. I think the one item that is a carryover from this year, it actually worked quite well this year. We have a slight conflict when it comes to the December vacation with our contracts. So we have clerical some, depending on what days, some of our units have designated for their holidays. So we will have no school on Friday, December 22nd. No school on Monday, January 1st, and we will return to classes on Tuesday, January 2nd. If we're all lucky, and, I'm sorry, graduation is scheduled for Sunday, June 2nd. That's a day there. And then if there are no snow days, and including if there are no snow days, our last day is June 18th. If there are 5 snow days, it would be June 26th. So we build the calendar that way so that everybody has a general idea of when we'll be in school or when we won't be in school. So presenting that, I think it's a voting item, so I think it's something that has to be approved by the committee.
I'd first like to entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Are there any questions or discussion? Ms. Visnick?
I would like to discuss the 2 dates that are related to a specific religion Monday, September 25th, and Friday, March 29th. I am having a hard time with us having days off for two religions and not recognizing other religions. And I don't think it's possible for us to recognize all of the religions. So I feel like we shouldn't be recognizing any, in the sense that I will say, as someone of Jewish faith, if I wish to celebrate a holiday, I will pull my children out of school to do that. I don't think our entire district should recognize a specific religion's holiday. I'm just going to stop right there.
Are there any other questions, comments, or amendments? Mayor Cahill?
Thank you, Madam President. Could I just ask Dr. Trochik about the December 8th PD Day? How long have we been utilizing a PD Day for teacher-parent conferences? I'm just trying to remember.
1996, I can tell you. So,
96,
yep.
right?
So back when I was teaching, back when I was a principal, it's always I'm gonna take that back. When we made the transition to a standards-based report card for elementary, so I'm gonna look back here, 2001, 2002, maybe. That was when it was. So when we transitioned our elementary school report card from a regular, 1, 2, 3, 4, to a skills-based report card, I would say, to a standards-based report card, it was built into the schedule. So that was back prior to my principalship at Ayers. So I would say for a long time. The elementary, middle school have used that as conference days. I think the middle school actually used it as a professional development day for a while and more recently transitioned it to be conference days, maybe in the last 4 or 5 years. But it has always been a PD day for the high school. So it's been quite a long time that it's been in the calendar that way. And it's utilized, it comes at the end of the first trimester. It's an opportunity for parents to go in and get some follow-up on on how their students doing in school.
I would offer some feedback as a parent who participated in the elementary level on this day. It was a really good opportunity for parents to go in, but since COVID and the ability for the meetings to happen on Google Meet, so parents don't have to physically, or guardians don't have to physically come in, it has been hard to even get to see all the teachers now because it's become so popular, I think, for the middle school parents to have that first trimester check-in. And I can't imagine how the teachers would accomplish it if they didn't have that whole day to meet with all the parents. Because as it is, you have to pick your top 2 concerning, teachers to meet with because there's just not enough time in the days for all the parents who now want to participate now that the Google Meet is the option.
I'm not sure if they're still doing this, but at the middle school, are they still utilizing the humanities teachers would be together and then the science, then the science and math would be together?
For the 7th and 8th graders, that was my experience, just because there's just too many subjects for the older kids.
Yeah, and I thought that worked. I thought that worked very well. And then just to also say that maybe at the high school it would be helpful to have the conferences be scheduled rather than not, because it's just.
I will say at this point, the feedback that we've gotten from 7th and 8th grade, I think the carryover from conference from the elementaries to the middle school, and it took a while, and again, kudos to Lisa Oliver and her staff for figuring out how to make that happen in that environment. But the participation in parent conferences at the middle school I don't even know if it's quadrupled. I mean, there's just so much more participation than the model, which is what was previous, which was followed the high school schedule of afternoons back. So a great suggestion for something to think about how high school could look at it, but I will say that it is very valuable at the middle school. I actually would like to see one in the spring, so, but there's no days left.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any more questions or comments?
Sorry.
Robinson?
I would just like to say, I would agree with what Ms. Visnick was speaking about with religion and holidays, and I think what you said deserves some discussion, for sure.
Ms. Visnick?
Then I guess, thank you for that, and I think I want to make a motion that we take those 2 days off of our calendar, which would change the end date.
Okay, second.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second to remove Monday, September 25th, 2023, which is the Yom Kippur, no school day, and the March 29th, 2024, that's a Friday, which is the Good Friday holiday.
So I have a question. I don't think you could see my hand up.
I cannot.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please.
Yeah. So that request, I think has come up in some other districts I've lived in, and typically the way that decision is made was based on the percentage of students that the school felt like would miss school as a result of the holiday. And so it was an effort to accommodate the anticipation of students essentially not missing out on instructional time because a good percentage of them might be missing. It was also an opportunity to consider that we already have built into many other calendars, including federal calendars, around Christmas holidays, New Year's, and other types of things. So I'd be curious to know how the district decides which holidays to add to the calendar, because I know that some districts do have a formula with regard to anticipating student absences. So Dr. Trochik, maybe you have a sense of how that decision is made and how it might impact student absences.
So I will say very honestly that this has been in Beverly, Yom Kippur and Good Friday have been observed traditionally for a long time, and had never really been asked to alter that in any way. I do know that in Beverly we've had a lot of conversations and discussions. I know that Rabbi Adler has kind of talked to the committee about, how to make sure that we're accommodating some of our students of the Jewish faith if they are missing school, because this isn't the only Jewish holiday that happens on a school day, and so there are other Jewish holidays that we don't observe as non-school days. So I will just honestly say I rolled the calendar because I didn't see a discussion coming on these holidays because they've been here for so long, So in terms of collecting actual data on the number of students who are Jewish in our community or Catholic in our community, I don't know that we have a data source, a data bank readily available for that. That would be something that we would have to kind of collect, I think, at some level. I do know there has been conversation in front of the committee before about the Good Friday holiday. There was a lot of concern a couple of years ago, I believe, about the Good Friday walk, which a number of our high school students and middle school students participate in. So I know that's sort of in the back of my head that's, I wouldn't call it an untouchable, but something that will cause a lot of discussion among the community. So that's where I am. And Jean, do you have a follow-up on that?
Yeah, I just want to remind the committee that some of the contracts do have Good Friday as a holiday. So since we're entering into negotiations, it's something to look at. So I'm not sure.
So that would mean in some of our clerical, transportation, some of those, that's listed as a holiday so it would be a staffing issue on some of those days. But that would be for the Good Friday holiday.
Good Friday is the one that I was thinking of, yes.
And Rachel has pulled out
Thank
her
you. That's
contracts.
I do know, like you said, in other districts, the calculation for disruption or absences is part of the reason that these observations are made about holidays to do that. And there have been faiths that are more minimal in size, where the districts make accommodation for those students to miss school, but because the population may be so small, they have not caused major either staffing or student absences, that would be disruptive. I guess so for that purpose, I feel like unless we have more information, I'm not comfortable suggesting that we make that switch tonight, particularly because we don't have a sense of how it might impact staffing.
While I very quickly look through our contracts, I'm looking at Unit A first, since it's our largest unit. I'm just trying to find.
They wouldn't have days,
They don't
they
have
have
the
184
specified days,
days. It
okay.
would be the AFSME units that,
The
in
AFSCME?
particular.
Are there any other comments or questions? I'm looking for any hands.
I guess I would ask if we don't, if we wait for some data around this, what is the impact of not making this decision this evening? Right? If we honor Dr. McKenzie's points and say, okay, we want more data, what does that mean? Like, why did you bring it forward this evening, Dr. Chirocek, versus next week or the week after?
I think that for one reason, we tend to begin to get inquiries from families in the district looking to schedule either their summer camps or they're just forward thinking, when is school starting? They want to know sort of when those vacations are. It has always been part of the February, I think, meeting. It's an opportunity we know so we sort of have our checklists of when we do certain things, and the calendar is one that we typically address at this point. I would say that a data point that I could bring forward that would be an interesting one is the number of teachers that may observe the Jewish holidays that are on staff. I could know how many staff observe holidays and take that day as a religious observed holiday. That's one data piece that we could look back into, that we would have. I just turned around and was asking the cabinet, how will we, really find out that the data on the religious, who observes what religion, in order to know that the total number. I'm sure that there'll be, Rabbi Adler will weigh in on that one. I'm not sure.
Just informational purposes, our cafeteria unit, it has both Good Friday and Yom Kippur as contractually negotiated days off for holidays.
Okay, given that, I would like to withdraw my motion to amend this year's calendar. However, I would like to say that when we go back into contract negotiations, this should be a conversation, especially as we continue to invest in our DEIB efforts. There absolutely should be a separation of church and state, and although we have no control over the federal government and whether they choose to recognize quote-unquote Christmas or not, we can control what we can control. And I think it sends a big message when we're recognizing some and not all. And I think it is truly unrealistic for us to recognize all. Therefore, we would be best served to recognize none outside of what we have to from a federal government point of view.
Okay, so the motion.
And I would like to just add another comment to that.
Sure.
Again, I do think in keeping with DEIB principles, we have to consider the communities within which we live. I think if we were in a community that had a community of people who were predominantly Muslim, we would probably be observing different kinds of holidays. So I also think we need to be sensitive to our constituents and what's been precedent. And I think the approach that I know Montgomery County, Maryland took of getting a sense of how it would impact the community in terms of staffing and attendance was really helpful. For example, that community has a very large Orthodox Jewish community, so it was actually quite a burden on the district to have that much in terms of students and staffing absences, and it actually turned out to be very expensive for the district to have to find substitutes and other things. So I do think part of the equity discussion is how are we accommodating what it is that people as citizens want for their institutions to also respect from them. So I think it's almost the same argument as saying, like, do we provide places for people to pray at work if that's part of their observation, or do we say none of that should be occurring in our buildings? So I think we really just have to give a lot of thought to what is equity and belonging, because sometimes when we remove ways that we include or recognize people's preferences or differences, we could actually do a disservice that way. So I think we really want to look at who are our constituents, do a little bit of a deeper dive in how it would affect attendance and staffing expectations, so that we don't create a different kind of exclusionary kind of impact that we're not intending to have. So I'll rest with that.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Okay, so we've actually had the proponent for the amendment withdraw. So we're back to the original motion, which is to approve the calendar as it was presented in our packet, with a start date for teachers of August 28th, and for students grade 1 through 9 in person, August 30th, with virtual days for 10 through 12. That puts our last day June 18th, 2024, if we have no snow days. And then with 5 snow days and including Juneteenth, the last day would be June 26, 2024. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the roll. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie?
Yes.
Sorry. Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick?
I'm going to abstain.
Abstain?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Ms. Abel, yes. So it passes 601. And that will be available on the district website, I'm sure, in the morning.
All right, thank you. And then my second item for the superintendent's report is just sort of an update on the budget process for all of you. As you know, we have been continuing to meet with our department heads and our building principals. And so what I want to bring forward tonight is requests. So please, these are requests. These are the requests that came to us. Before Jean and I take a fine pen to our orange sheet, we felt like it's important for you to at least hear and understand what's being requested in our buildings by our principals. So rather than have dollar figures, this is going to be looking at the kinds of areas that they're trying to shore up. As always, when I begin a discussion about our budget, we're starting with our district goal areas, and so our building principals and our department heads are always keeping in mind that we have certain goals and that we are building our budget to support these goals, as well as the focus areas that we have determined. And we will be coming forward with a more refined look at our focus areas for 23-24. And then finally, knowing what factors are impacting our budget. So again, we know that we have certain contractual obligations. We look at enrollment. We are talking a lot about resourcing for high quality curriculum materials. We came forward earlier this evening with CISL for some science materials at the high school. We're looking at department funding requests and at special education increases. This is the process. This is not a new slide for you. We are now we've been reviewing the requests from funding for various departments, and that's where we are in the stage. That sets the stage for Jean and I to work through our orange sheet and then set up that meeting. Our starting talks begin with the mayor and Bryant after we've completed that. So we'll be looking towards that in the next couple of weeks. We always keep in mind our priorities that we set. These are the priorities that were set by the stakeholder groups. I reviewed these with you the last time we met. I'm always keeping in mind, I just want to keep reminding you what our contractual obligations are. It's just an important part of the process, and I think the more exposure you get and the more understanding you get around what dollar figures we know we already have, we're obligated in this budget as increases, then it's important for you to know. So these are just the numbers around the 2.25% increase, 2.75% increase that has already been negotiated. That's assumed across the employees, $1,482,000 $1,120. Steps, $683,989. Lanes, $250. Healthcare increase at $259,282. These are our known costs, and please remember, we are entering into negotiations with our 3 AFSCME units, so those are not reflected, any changes that are made to the AFSCME contracts that are upcoming. The AFSCME units that we have negotiations, we've received our demand to bargain, our clerical unit, our food service unit, and our transportation department. So those are there. And so what I wanted to bring forward tonight really is just a conversation with all of you around requests for what our staffing and what we want to look like. So some of you that were here will remember that this sort of matrix I've set up is really to kind of track what funding resources we're utilizing as we make decisions as we go forward. So these PK through 8 requests are actually continuation of positions that have already been approved and are in place. What we are trying to do is balance the funding source, taking a look, as we said we would do, that if there were positions that we added on ESSER last year because we wanted to see if what the impact they would have or if they would be necessary, that we may be looking into the FY24 budget to move some of those into the district budget and or to other funding sources that we might have available. Some of these positions are remaining, we're proposing right now, this is just a draft that Jean and I are working with, that we're proposing they remain on ESSER, and we will continue to utilize ESSER funds and then either re-examine those positions at the end of the fiscal year or resource differently those positions or those needs. So at AIRS, there is an interventionist. There are actually 1.8 positions. We're continuing to recommend that we be paying for those on the ESSER grant. These aren't recommendations, that's the request, but that's where we would put it if we were to approve it. That an elementary English language teacher, we believe that one, which was funded through ESSER this year, is going to continue to be an important part of our district and a need for our students, so we would be recommending that position be incorporated into our appropriated budget. We have 3 special education positions that were previously funded on ESSER. We're in discussion and conversation, and that really is largely in Bethany's department, and looking at funding sources. Either do we continue to need them or do we need other funding sources? That's the discussion we'll have. We have 2 positions at North Beverly that have been requested to remain, and they are enrollment driven. Again, the difference at the elementary is that enrollments fluctuate. So at North Beverly, some grade levels have 3 sections and some have 4 sections. And so sometimes what was 4 in kindergarten becomes 4 in first grade and goes down, and we don't know what our new kindergarten numbers are going to look like. And so those positions we've targeted for the district budget at this point in time. The 2.4 reading teachers and 2.0 building supports are positions at the middle school that have been funded by ESSER, and the proposal is that we would continue at this point in time, at least where we are in our process. Our thinking is they would remain on ESSER. And then there's a 1.0 STEM teacher that was added on ESSER last year. If you remember, last year we created a new schedule at the middle school, and we worked to take a look at what we would need, and we believe at this point in time that STEM teacher is going to need to become part of the appropriated budget. And so those are areas, so it's sort of a shifting and moving within the matrix, but these are positions that have requests that have come forward that we continue with positions that were new last year.
Thank you, Ms. Abel. So you mentioned the first one, the elementary EL teacher. This year, that position is funded out of ESSER, but you're looking at next year putting it into our district budget.
Correct.
What about the other 3 that are in the district budget column?
Same thing. Well, right now, so often we come forward and we say we need another 2nd grade teacher for enrollment purposes. And so those are also, right now, that's where they are. We're watching enrollment. One of them is on watch. We're not sure if we're going to need it or not. So there's some transition in some of the neighborhoods in North Beverly, and so we're close to needing it, not needing it, and so we kind of put it on a watch. Remember, we used to have a little red 1.0 somewhere. So one of those positions is on a watch, but I would rather figure it in right now in case it's needed and be thinking about what we're going to do. And then the STEM teacher is one that we don't believe we can do without. That would be one that we would be wanting to be into the appropriated budget.
So in that sense, they're not quote-unquote continuation staff. There would really be new positions.
Nope, they're positions that exist right now. They're just paid for on ESSER right now.
Okay, so all of them this year have
Yes,
been
these
in
have
here.
these are already people, there's already people filling these positions right now. We're shifting the funding from ESSER to the.
Thanks.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
So in terms of the personnel that's funded through ESSER, and the ESSER will continue for another 2 years?
We have ESSER till September 30th of 2024, Gene? 2025, right, yeah.
So you anticipate that those FTEs will remain through the ESSER funding?
At this time?
Through that entire duration?
Yes, at this time,
And
yeah.
do you have an idea of what fraction of them will be retained in the district budget, or is the intention?
So this is the exercise that we're going through right now. So we are saying of some of the positions that we added last year, we think that 4 of them, all 4 of those are enrollment driven. Those aren't good to haves. We have the number of students. So our EL population grew exponentially with a great number of newcomers. So we are required. We have to hire an EL teacher to provide services to them. So it's no longer I wonder if we need another L teacher. It's no, our enrollments are such that we need another L teacher. The same thing with the STEM teacher at the middle school. In order to make sure that every kid gets STEM, we need to have another teacher. For the North Beverly grades 1 and 2, we know, I think it's grade 2, we know we need 4 sections. In grade 1, we think we may, and but those are enrollment driven. Those aren't responses to urgency needs or anything like that. Those are sort of enrollment driven positions. And every year we have a certain number of enrollment driven positions. Okay. So these are the new requests that came through. So Ms. Visnick, the difference between that last slide and this slide, these are new requests, so in talking with teachers. So we know that at this point in time, the 4 paraprofessional positions are based upon student need, and we've worked with Ms. Splansky, and so these we know, and they will either be, there are funding sources that within special education that can only go for special education. So looking at either a tuition, utilizing some tuition offsets or something like that, that's where that funding will come from. Those would be new positions, but the funding isn't hitting the district budget on these new positions, the request. At Cove, North Beverly, and Hannah, the principals have made a request for interventionists. As you know, we've been looking at our interventionists as those at their kind of 1-year positions at this point in time when we hire them, and they're going in and providing additional supports for students who particularly were struggling either in reading or math based upon some learning loss that might have occurred for them. And so these are positions that have been requested. This doesn't mean that Jean and I have said, yes, you can have them. This just means that principals are saying, in my building, I would like to be considered to have another interventionist in my building. Those would be targeted for ESSER funding. The nurse for the AIM program, again, that's something that Jody Elder and Bethany will make a decision and determination based upon the students that are in that program. If there's a need for that, that funding source would also come from either, from somewhere. We'd find it. Jean will, as I always say, Jean will find it. So
when we're putting other grant and it's special ed, it could be the special ed education grants that we get from DESC or our revolving account or circuit breaker.
Or circuit breaker. So those are funding sources that can only be used for special education. And then there is a 1.0 middle school special ed. We need to add an additional Attain program at the middle school. That's enrollment driven. We just have a number of students transitioning up from elementary school to the middle school with a high level of need, and that is a self-contained program for students with significant disabilities. So that's a district budget position that would need to be added. And then we have 2 requests at the middle school. Sorry, I should have put middle school when it says math interventions, but one area, so there's been a change in the law that affects discipline of students under 37H and 3/4. Enough said about that, but basically it impels our building leaders to search for alternatives to school suspension prior to school suspension. Mrs. Oliver and her team have been doing a lot of work learning about restorative justice, learning about alternatives to suspension. And so this is a request that will be behavioral support at the middle school around that area. So taking a look at what we might be able to do. Again, it's a request. It's on, we would be targeting ESSER funding for that at this point in time. And then also a middle school math interventionist is another request that's on the table for, again, utilizing ESSER funding.
Madam President?
Mayor Cahill.
Dr. Trochik, I see the acronym PASS. We know the PASS program. What's the connection?
So the PASS program serves high school. It does not serve middle school. So this is looking specifically at middle school. What would we create and how would we staff a positive alternative to school suspension program within the middle school? Maybe on the same kind of idea, but you know, more developmentally appropriate for middle school and looking at how we would do that.
And thank you for clarifying. We've talked about that before, and I'm remembering that now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, so that's the pre-PK through 8. This is the high school, and I apologize. These are, I did not separate these out by continuation, but I can tell you which ones they are. So the school, there is a 1.5 school adjustment counselor on our ESSER grant right now. The request is to continue with those positions, and the funding is still available on ESSER, and so that's, you know, that's where we have that targeted. We did add, I think it's I'm not sure, the position for SAC at Ladders. So our Ladders program is our behavioral program at the high school. And so there's a request for, you know, buoying the resources that we have available for that program. They currently have 2 paraprofessionals that are on ESSER, hoping to continue them. We have the ESSER funding available, so those would be a continuation. The Ladders teachers, those are continuation, both of those positions, right? Are those? One, okay, so one is a new and one is a continuation. But again, we know that strengthening our program for Ladders at the high school allows us to keep Beverly kids in Beverly, allows us to provide what some of our kids might need at the high school level. And so just, again, these are requests. I'm just sharing for all of you to have that general information. There was a guidance council that was added on ESSER strictly for the freshman academy, and it was really added as an idea of, is this something that will work better? How we restructure our guidance has been enormously helpful. And so we are requesting to move that guidance council into district funding. Math interventionists, actually those positions were approved by all of you a couple of months ago. They're still unfilled. We're still struggling trying to find them, but we would continue to believe that those positions, I think if you were here earlier at the program of studies, part of the shift out of the essentials, the 2 essential classes, shifting that interventionist into an in-class support within some of those smaller algebra classes is part of the model. So knowing that those 2 positions had been approved already. And then the high school is looking for an additional paraprofessional for the English language learner program. Again, we have a high number of newcomers, and our enrollment of students who qualify for English language services is just a little higher this year. And so they've asked for us to consider a paraprofessional in that program. And so, and then finally, we're looking at the district, sort of more district-wide requests. Our Jody Elder has requested, we have 2 float nurses. We have had 2 float nurses since the beginning of the pandemic. Those float nurses have become invaluable, particularly as we have, you know, coverage issues when we need to have students, our student medical needs are a little higher. If students are going on field trips, there's just if nurses are absent, both of those positions exist already. They're not new positions. So I just want to be careful. It looks like we're adding a lot of positions. Most of these positions are already in our FTE count. So there's very few that are brand new. But it was funded by, if you remember, Jody had received a DPH grant. And so that position was previously funded on a DPH grant. And so we're shifting that funding, looking at in our district budget, or if there is another grant available. But that grant ends at the end of this year, right, Jean?
Yes, she received it for 2 years.
And so, and there's that. We already have a position of Director of Innovative Practices for the middle school. It has been unfilled this year. the request is that we consider around some of our curriculum work that we're doing, going back and filling that position. It just was unfilled this year. And then within our special education department, Bethany is requesting an additional speech and language pathologist that is enrollment driven as well. Just the number of students that we have, particularly in our AIM programs, and the level of need around speech and language for those students with communication disorders in particular is very heavy. And so we're very stretched as far as that goes. And then the final request is, it's actually two together, but this is in response to, and I know that we are not the only district that is experiencing a high level of need among our K and 1 students. Our youngest students, there are just some students who are truly struggling in the classroom. We employed 2 behavior analyst assistants this past year, one at the preschool and one in our AIM program, I believe. And we believe that it was a great opportunity to get highly skilled and trained assistants that can go in and work with our BCBA. So for those that don't know how a BCBA works, we might have a student that's really experiencing significant difficulty in a grade 2 classroom. And so we will deploy a BCBA to go to that classroom, to do observations, to work with the teacher, to build a plan. But the BCBAs are kind of going everywhere all at one time, and so they're not able to provide that follow-through once that plan is created. And so at the elementary level, and particularly that K-1-2 level, we feel the need to, and so the addition of 4 behavior analyst assistants will allow us to have 1 behavior analyst assistant at each building who can travel from place to place to sort of provide that extra support in the moment for those students. And then additionally, we believe our BCBAs, they're riding buses, they're just very, very busy. There's just a lot of people that are still struggling with some trauma and some effects of, whether it's fallout from the pandemic or, whatever. We have just seen an increase in the amount of need that we have, so we're proposing additional BCBA. So that brings us only to the last one, if you're not too tired yet. We're going to make you more tired. These are non-staffing requests, and again, I just want to keep saying these are requests. Jean and I have not, gone through all of it. We know that there's a 14% increase OST. Actually, I think confirmation came today that it's official, that there's a 14% increase for us at this point in time. With this as an actual number based on our student enrollment, it would be an increase of $775,000 to our budget, just based on that increase, based on the students that are already placed in private schools. And so that number is out there. Transportation, we have vehicle and lease and operating costs over and above. So we believe that the increase in that transportation line for just in that area may be around $75,000. So we're just putting it out there as we work through it. And the same in buildings and grounds for cleaning supplies. And then our fire security is work that needs to be done on our panels in each of our schools. Jean?
And I just want to add that 75,000 does not talk about anything about negotiations.
That does
is
not include-
operating
right.
costs only.
And then finally, buildings and grounds is cleaning supplies and a fire security. We're rotating our panel, it's the panels in each of the buildings, software, licensing, repair, whatever. And so just the increased costs right now is at about $120,000. Before this is the requests, not, And then finally, Jean and I know we have to just keep our eye on the impact of inflation and the costs in goods and services. I've been to the grocery store in the last week, and so we know that inflation is happening, and so we need to be aware of that. This is just last year's budget was the city contribution was $56,185,493. Our Chapter 70 fund money last year was $13,158,441. Our final budget appropriation was $69,343,934. We are It will be we do not have any word yet. The governor's budget, which typically we would have in hand at this meeting, which would have made some of this, you know, a little more concrete for us, is not out yet. I'm hearing, I'm not sure when the release will be, but Governor Healy has until March 2nd, Mayor, is that correct? I think it's March 2nd, to issue the governor's budget, which, if you remember, is the first step as we go through the process. I would say 5 months ago, Desi said, you know, if you're planning your budget, you might be able to consider, think about a 5% increase would be a safe number to think about for your Chapter 70 money. 5% of our Chapter 70 money is $660,000, which doesn't even cover the $775,000 increase for the 14% OSD. On a positive note, I will say there is hope. I believe there's been, as I told you earlier, the superintendents have been providing great advocacy pointed to the governor's office around really consideration around that 14% increase as part of the supplemental budget, and looking at some just one-year relief for districts and if that comes, that will be very helpful. So we're all fingers crossed, hoping for word on that to come. The superintendent sent a letter in to Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, just advocating for that being a particularly large burden on all of the district budgets across Massachusetts. Doesn't matter whether you're a city or a town or a regional. Everybody's kind of really feeling the pinch from that one. I think the Mayor's Association is following suit or doing something likewise, right? Same kind of advocacy from the mayor. So really all trying to come together and you know, look for some relief in that regard. Legislative process is still all TBD because everything is TBD. So we're waiting. We're going to have to wait until we hear what some of that looks like. And so that's an old slide. That's sort of where we are.
So,
Dr. Silva?
when receiving the ESSER funding, you had sort of, you and others had sort of forewarned us about the dependency of taking on those funds and getting to the cliff of, so can you give us some details about how you're going to brace that or reduce the gap in terms of, addressing that concern?
So the way that we're doing it is in our conversations as we go. I put the matrices back up. We're making decisions on positions, and they're either going to be in or out. Everyone is aware that if they're on ESSER, they're not, and ESSER funds end, those positions end, right? So we're very, very transparent, both with teachers, with the building leadership, and when we hire in those positions, people are told it's a one-year position.
Okay, that's good.
And that the contracts or their assignment letters say it's for 1 year based on ESSER funding. So we're very clear. That won't stop the unemployment claims, correct, Jean? That's
So
the only
there's
downfall.
liabilities
It
there.
won't stop that. Just because we say it's a 1 year, they're still not working, so there's that. However, we have been watching that tremendously closely, and so we're out as we move. So when we get that final Chapter 70 number, if we can't do some of the things that we can't do, that's why I say this is not our budget, this is not our FTE count, this is our requests that we've been receiving. If we're trying to build the best educational program for Beverly, this is what our building leaders are telling us they wish they had, the tools and the resources they would need. It will be on Jean and I in the next 3 weeks to really comb through, match up. What funding do we have left in ESSER? What funding is available? What impact will that have on the district budget? What other funding? So we do have funding sources for Title I, like Title I and Title IIA and Title III. So there are other funding sources that we have available to us. We have our circuit breaker for our special education. And we know, we learn, and I believe it's come to fruition in Beverly, if we strengthen our own programming within Beverly for our high needs special ed students, and we keep them in district, then we have funding available to build programs so that they can be successful here. And that saves them being in an out of district placement. I will say, it's been a very challenging year. We have some kids who are very significantly impacted and have had to go out of district. And, you know, we certainly want to do what we want to meet the student need, whatever that student need looks like. So we're, you know, trying to build a lot of options for our kids as we look at, you know, so when a team sits down to meet and discuss what a student needs, they know what tools and resources they have available.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Trocheck.
Can I just say one thing? For any of you at any time in the process, if you would like, set up a time. I'm happy to sit. If you have individual questions, if you're wondering, I can do Zoom. I'm happy to talk with you. I am available to do that because I think it's going to be important for everybody to understand what the asks are and where the funding sources are and what we're doing and how we're going to make it work.
I think my request is, per usual, post these slides or put the link up because I can't even read my own handwriting from trying to take some notes. So thank you.
Okay. All right. So thank you. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay. And then we'll just do some reports from our Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities first. Ms. Wisnick?
Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities last met on January 25th. The highlights include an update from our food services director, who talked about the McEwen Schools cafeteria, and they now are decorated in an Under the Sea theme. It's very cute. We were introduced to the new Assistant Director of Transportation, Mary Canavan. We got an update on the cameras for our buses. The bid was allocated. Is this the word I use? Awarded. We awarded the bid. And so our 22 large buses, our 13 small buses, and 9 vans will all be equipped with cameras that will provide visuals of both the interior and exterior of our buses. And the bulk of our meeting was spent going over, Jean presented, quote unquote, School Budgeting 101, very thorough, comprehensive, anything you could think about, everything from revolving accounts to different incomes and where the state regulations come in. And we expect that this will be a relatively stable document, yet still a living document. And it'll be a wonderful resource for anyone joining FNF or anybody who's just interested in general how school budgeting works. So that was our last meeting. We are scheduled to next meet 1 week from today, Wednesday, February 15th, here in the middle school library at 6:30. And our main topic on that agenda will be an update around the special education 14% increases that Dr. Trocheck was just mentioning on her slides. And our last order of business is that the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends approval of the attached November to December 2022 gifts to schools in the amount of $8,040.54.
I'd like to make a motion to accept with gratitude the gifts to schools for November and December 22 totaling $8,040.54. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Silva. I'll call the roll on the vote, unless there were any questions. It was included in our packet. Okay. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick?
Yes,
And Ms. Abel, yes.
that finishes my report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Visnick. Next, and I always know this must be a struggle since that we met just prior, I would like to ask our Standing Committee on Curriculum Instruction and Student Life to report out the meeting earlier this evening.
Of course. Okay, so, yes, the Curriculum Instruction and Student Life Committee met this evening, and we heard from our student life representatives from the middle school. There was There will be a Hollywood red carpet dance for grade 8 students this Friday. They have launched a green team. The 8th grade is in phase 2 of their civics project. And the Winter Waffle Land was a huge success, bringing in almost $11,000. So maybe we can raise some money for community. The high school, the students reported that they've been looking at courses for next year, and the seniors are working on their REACH internships, and they're working on securing REACH internships. Mrs. Taylor spoke about pathways, and she's working very hard to get more classes available, especially to juniors and seniors that focus on courses within the pathways. There were, in terms of the Course Excitement Week, we heard a little bit about that from our student representative, Kaylee, but the purpose was to generate excitement. They're still in the middle of it, generate excitement and enthusiasm for courses, to encourage students to challenge themselves with honors and AP courses. And I would definitely suggest that parents and families and caregivers take a look at the choice board, because it could be helpful in, having meaningful discussions with kids about the options that are available at the high school. And very exciting, Dr. Thomas spoke about, we've approved the updated science texts and digital resources for next year. So there's going to be a lot of new curriculum available to our students for science, I'm trying to think of the specific courses. All of them. Just all the courses. It's very exciting that we're going to be able to really update our science curriculum at the high school. And our next meeting, I believe, will be Wednesday, it's almost June, I said June, not June, March 8th.
Thank you so much. For negotiations, as Dr. Chorocek just mentioned, she notified me today of her receipt of a demand to bargain for our ASME units. That includes our cafeteria, our administrative assistants, and our transportation units. So I actually do need to check with the other members of the negotiating team, Dr. Silva and Ms. Robinson. I know you both have been so busy with the principal selection committee. I'm going to have to ask for some more afternoons. We'll check our calendars and respond with some dates that we will be available. I believe that's it for negotiations. And for policy review subcommittee, Dr. Kenan McKenzie DeFranza.
Yes, thank you for that introduction. And we actually have an update from our policy committee, which did meet on January 25th as part of a committee of the whole meeting. We did get an opportunity to review and discuss our December 2021 minutes, which was the previous meeting where there were some discussions around action items, and also considering how we can transfer now that information into our review of policies. One of the things that the committee decided to do is to work offline to review newsletters, that past and current newsletters that might be providing policy changes and updates. We also need to ensure that we review any past minutes for action items before the committee changed chair leadership. And we'll also be reaching out to central office to see if there's anything that is urgent that needs to be addressed soon in terms of policy clarifications or edits. So with that being the case, we will be working offline to accomplish those things, and to observe open meeting law. We will not be meeting as a group to discuss those things, but we do plan to come back together in March after we've done the different tasks that we delegated out into the meeting. So that's the report from the policy subcommittee.
Thank you so much for your report. And the last agenda item this evening is communications from school committee members. Are there any school committee members that wish to bring forward communications that they received or had in the last month? Ms. Visnick?
Both my items are not exactly communications, but currently taking place in our schools, both at the middle school and at the high school, is an effort to help stock the pantry being run for Beverly Bootstraps in conjunction with all our sports teams. And so it's one of those things where I just want to give everybody who agreed to help work on that a huge shout out. It's one of the things that makes our community a wonderful community. So, for instance, last night you could go to if you were a student, you could go to Beverly High's boys basketball game and get in for free if you gave 2 boxes of macaroni and cheese. And Friday night you can go to the girls' game and take a box of pasta. You can get in for free in exchange for that food to help restock the pantry at Beverly Bootstraps. And I wanted to I had hoped Miss Oliver would talk a little bit more about Project 351. For people who don't know, the overarching premise started back in 2011 when Deval Patrick was our governor. And one student is picked out of each of the 351 communities, cities or towns that make up the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They convene a big meeting on Martin Luther King Day, and they get inspired. They hear from a whole bunch of leaders, volunteers, community people. They go out and do a day of service on that particular day, and then they commit to doing a springtime service project. Their term as an ambassador is 1 year, and then each year a new ambassador is chosen. And I think you spoke a little bit to the selection process, how that student is picked out of our middle school to represent our community. And then some students continue on after their year, and they continue as like mentors. And so I just think that it's not well known because only one student out of 1,400 here gets selected, but it is an incredible opportunity for that one student, for the school in general, to learn to give back. And so just like this food drive for Beverly Bootstraps, all the things around kindness and empathy and all those things that we would like to continue to promote and encourage should be really exemplified by that particular student who came before us earlier this evening. And it's for me, I have been fortunate enough to have 2 of my children be chosen, and it is truly, if you could go, I went one of the 2 years and served myself with the other 350 ambassadors, and it is hopefully for those children truly life-changing. It's incredibly impactful.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Ms. Robinson.
I don't have anything new to report, but when you were saying that, wouldn't it be nice if we brought the student from the year before back on the same day that we name the student and hear about their project? Because we hear what they're going to do, but it'd be nice to hear what they did.
Thank you so much. Other members wishing to contribute? I'll just share, I had constituents reaching out almost daily, sometimes twice daily about the calendar, so I can happily report back to those constituents that it will be on the website tomorrow. And then I also had a constituent reach out asking more information about school choice, and the superintendent is aware of that, so. Okay, I don't want to keep us all here.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, Ms. Visnick.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. I apologize, I just swallowed the wrong way. I'll do a roll call. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Visnick? Yes. Ms. Abel, yes. 7-0, and it is 9:15. Thank you, BevCam, so much, as always.